I was going to say that this is what you just said is also perfect leading into question 2. I might as well just ask here, right? So question 2 is Martin. It's a question for Martin and Curt. It's been approximately 100 days of Trump being in office. Martin, can you provide your assessment of his performance thus far from the European perspective? And Curt, please provide your perspective as well. By the way, this was asked back in April, so now we have 3 more months of data.
I haven't read this except for scanning it, and I'm like, I can imagine how Martin's going to go.
Suggest the format for your response. Positives, negatives, clown worlds.
No, I haven't followed that format at all. Anyway, I don't follow everything Trump does that closely, especially a lot of what he says is just a tactic rather than a real plan. There are certainly good signals early on, but the results appear rather mixed. Mass deportations aren't happening anywhere as much as they need to, but it does seem fewer people are trying to get into the US illegally. To my knowledge, nothing has been done about legal immigration. Then there was the tariff issue. It was clearly mostly game rather than a serious effort for reindustrialization, which would involve keeping sufficiently high tariffs in place. How Iran was handled could have been far worse, but it wasn't staying out like people voted for, and clearly demonstrates how much control Israel retains. Ukraine likewise still keeps receiving weapons. Add the Russian Epstein stuff on top of all this, and it's undeniable that Trump is entirely part of the swamp. As a European, I found responses of some of our so-called leaders to Trump's rhetoric encouraging, insofar they signaled we have to leave the American sphere. Their motivations may have been dumb and wrong, but being forced to actually behave like a sovereign power instead of being kept as a dependent has a tendency to make the country start behaving sane again, even if that necessitates replacing the leaders. But the moment has passed, and as usual, nothing ever happens.
I would say that in general, if our hopes were 100%, we're getting 20% of it.
And I want to add on top to that. So one thing, in terms of Trump's tactics, call it his tactics or his administration's tactics or whoever runs him's tactics or whatnot. But the one thing I notice is his favorite tactics is he starts with, just like how he negotiated in Art of the Deal, right? He starts with an untenable position, an outrageous offer.
Yep.
But through that outrageous offer, it makes his actual offer seems reasonable.
Correct.
So
that's why I wasn't commenting on Canada becoming 51st state or whatever. It's obviously not happening.
But then it may seem like he hasn't moved far enough, because we certainly did not get his 100% or 120% thing that he asked for, but we did get the 20%. And one thing I would add on top of that is, if you do this often enough, then eventually it does move the position to where we want it to be.
Correct.
A lot of people give him shit about not doing enough, not realizing we are actually marching towards those directions.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where the position of president, it's amazing what level of power it does have, but it's also amazing what level of power it does not have.
Yes.
It does not have the power to make laws. And to make any of these changes permanent, we need to make those into law.
Well, he got this big bill through, right?
Mm-hmm.
It had a lot of this shit in it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was skeptical about that. So I was pleased.
One thing that, I mean, this is probably minute, but it's I'm just using it to show a point. So those outside the U.S. or don't really follow guns probably doesn't care or didn't even notice that's in a big beautiful bill. But apparently, the Big Beautiful Bill has reduced the tax stamp associated with suppressor purchase to zero. It used to be $200 when NFA first put into effect back in 1933. So $200 back then was equivalent to $5,000. So basically, they made these suppressors, short barrel rifles, and so on a rich man's only game. And now they've gotten rid of it completely. You may say, well, what's the whole point? It's just $200 is not a lot of money. But what it paves a way to is the legal argument now that you don't really need this NFA at all. So gutting it one small pace at a time.
Yes. Which is how you break down a bureaucratic set of layers, right? All right. So do you want me to do my thing now?
Yes, please.
Martin's right, and Francis is explicitly correct. From every word out of Trump's mouth is negotiating. The level of deportations, I'm not following it, but I'm surprised at how small the numbers have been. But what's happening is, as expected, the left is organizing to use organized violence to react to it. So I think they're going to give us, in other words, give those of us who want to increase the removal of illegals, they're going to give us motivation. I think that will take time. The tariff game was a shock and awe game. I think it largely worked for what he was trying to say, which was that the U.S. has burned its own people in its market in order to bring the rest of the world into the common market, and that we're not going to burn our people anymore. So this is just the step that I expected to take. I didn't expect him using tariffs as much as he's using them, but because we actually have money, it's more effective than I thought it would be.
What do you mean by because we have money? It's more
because
effective.
The U.S. we have a heavily consumption-driven economy, right? Which we don't like about ourselves, to be honest, right? But that means that if you want to make money in this world, you want to sell here.
Yeah. And
it's still like that. Because the effort per sale, right, and the returns on that sale are higher. So it's the same thing as Europe, but Europe has a lot of problems, mostly because since they are not they are a weaker federal system than ours, which I don't like. I don't like ours is stronger, but the benefit of our federal system is that we don't have to have what's the tax? The value added tax.
VAT.
Right, but we don't have to have that. Whereas Europe, because of the value added different places, if it was just a sales tax, that would leave it would be harmful to the places that produce versus the places that consume. And so they use a value added tax to capture whatever value is made by whatever bit of production. The problem is 20%. I guess it's 20%. Is it like 20% on average? I think is what it is. That's fucking insane, right? That's 20% is the total tax burden you wanna stay under for an entire population. So it's crazy. So.
If that's the case, the U.S. is already above 20%.
No, I
talking about total
know
tax
that.
burden.
I'm there, right? So when it comes to this tariff game and the different tax schemes or whatever, trade games, Europe should be as good a market as the U.S., but everything's just frankly so much more expensive, and people have far less money. I mean, it's one of the
Europe. So then, what Europe is actually doing is they're subsidizing their producers at the expense of their domestic consumers. By
Correct.
taxing the domestic consumers, they're in fact protecting the producers that are left.
Right, but they want to keep the redistributable money in the country, right? And so if they don't find some way to capture the value added, right? They feel like they're missing out and they're giving up. They're producing all this value but not getting any returns on it, because really what you want in a perfect world is a sales tax on one end and an income tax on the other. But a sales tax is just, sales tax is small, right? It's just that's a commission for handling transactions, and an income tax should be largely for relatively well-off people, right? And that should be your tax limit. Then the rest should just be fees. Like, we live in a town with too many fucking rich people, Francis, right? And so they don't mind taxing the fuck out of us, right? I'm seeing if I can get a reaction out of you. I wasn't getting a reaction. I expected to
Which
get
is why I want to move.
This is why you want to move, exactly.
I don't mind being taxed if my tax dollars are being used in proper places, but not, getting taxed so that they can build a low-income housing or build this $100 million city hall that's ugly and being underutilized. And
yes,
you've seen the ugly downtown park that spent $100 million built.
Exactly.
Well, I support protective tariffs because of incentives they create. What is done with the money is, of course, a separate matter.
Yes. Anyway, so that's the tariff and et cetera issue. I'm on Martin's side here with Iran, though. Look, though we're the only people that can use bunker busters, right? And we're not going to give that tech to anybody. I mean, all right. So
we have bunkers that we don't want to get busted.
Well, the problem is you need a fucking elephant plane.
Yeah, you basically need B-52 and B-2 bombers to carry that.
Right,
And that's like 30,000 pound bomb.
Yeah.
You can't carry that in an F-35, certainly.
And so I was like, well, they dropped, what, 12 of them or something like that?
Yeah, a good, great number of them.
Right.
Multiple
But,
redundancy.
But we don't even know how successful that was. On the other hand, I'm like, okay, that's not sending our boys off to war. That's taking out a nuclear threat, right? I can sort of go with that one. I'm not as severe as Martin is probably on that. As for Ukraine, of course, I'm happy that they get weapons. I just don't want us to be the burden carrier. And what Trump is trying to do is make Europe take responsibility for Europe. And as Martin said, it looked great, but I'm not sure. I don't know if you think you know where it's going, Martin, but I'm not really terribly impressed with the capacity.
My impression is in Zurich that the war is fake, but the massacres are real.
So what is? Let's say that again.
It's basically over oligarch squabbles.
The war is real, but the war is fake, but the massacre is real.
Yeah, Slavs are dying on both sides for no good reason.
Yes. And the recent, I don't care about Epstein. I really don't care. I finally spent about an hour looking into it yesterday, and there's a lot of hypothesis, but I can't find much evidence. I was mostly interested in whether it was about Trump, and it's hard to say any Epstein's stuff would stick to Trump because there's too many records on it of what he's really doing, which is really just sharing his plane and working together on a real estate deal. even when he went to the Epstein places, he took his family with him. I don't think there's any. I think there's no little smoke and no fire
Yeah,
there.
I don't think Trump is, as Elon Musk accused him of what is a child raper or something. Because if that's true, the Democrats they would have crucified him already 8 years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just like, Bill Clinton's. If anybody would philander, it would be Bill Clinton, right? And he was there a bunch, right? I mean, so I don't know.
Except they're trying to the left is trying to protect Bill Clinton.
Of course. So
it might be mutually assured destruction if they open that up.
yes, exactly.
It might take down everyone.
Yeah.
So
And maybe that. Go ahead.
My point is, I don't care about this shit. If you find it's true that there's an intel operation that's run by Mossad or something, or the U.S. or a combination of it, they're trying to get leverage on these fucking guys, right? Then that's something I want to know about. If it's a bunch of it's Maxwell and what's his name and Epstein, bringing in. I had no idea it was that many underage girls to use as bait, because I thought it was like, this is me and my ignorance. I thought
tens
it was like,
rather than thousands.
I thought it was like single digits first.
Oh, single digits? No.
Right? No, I'm an idiot. No, I'm telling you, this is me, right? So I was having the same conversation yesterday. I said, look, I'm thinking yacht chicks. You know what yacht girls are in Hollywood, right?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what is a bunch of they call them a bunch of hot chicks, and they pay them $10,000 to spend the day or the weekend on the yacht, and any extra recreational income they make is up to them. Right? It's not.
They're basically running a floating brothel.
Well, but it's not. That's a private affair between private people, right? Right. And they, it is my understanding, not that I haven't been to one of those in the States. My understanding is they like to keep it where there's not going to be illegal backlash to them, right? So, though it would surprise people, how many famous actresses today have been yacht chicks.
I am sure they slept
right?
their way. This is just like
unbelievable number.
Yeah, this is just part of course in Hollywood. I mean, let's think of it this way. I mean, you may be surprised by a number, but I'm thinking, right? You have a several $100 million yacht, and then you bring, say, 2 dozens of the elite there. You can't have single-digit chicks. You gotta have at least 2 or 3 per every elite that you bring there. So that's automatically in the dozens. So then that's one boat trip. And you're not going to have the same girls. So how long was it in operation? Like 20 years, right? You multiply by that number. Let's say it's one trip every month, and easily you get into thousands.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, there's things I can talk about and not, but my experience as working the game in Ukraine and Russia is I've gotten invited to these parties, right? And they bring what they call models. Lots
like Hollywood models.
Well, well, I mean, the problem with Ukraine and Russia is like 80% of the girls are 9s, right? I mean, it's like, I'm exaggerating, of course, but there's an absurd number of attractive Slavic women there, right? And so they come up to you and they try to get you to buy. It's like go to a strip club. They try to get you to buy drinks, right? They try to get you to order food, get stuff for them, right? So they're commissioned, right, on what they sell, right?
I know exactly what you mean, because in another life I was doing that. Another lifetime ago, I was doing that in Beijing.
Yes, exactly. And so the way it worked is that for me, I wanted to arrange bumps, right? So I'm trying to. My whole job is, can I get access to either somebody in the judiciary or somebody in the oligarchs? I mean, most of the time, that's what I was trying to get access to. And the judiciary is funny because they came to me, right? Because I had the think tank. So all of a sudden, I'm like giving lessons to judges, right? With discussion, not lessons, but discussions with judges and clerks and things. So I ended up having to not pursue that. But the oligarchs, their people are always sniffing around. It's like fucking gangsters, right? They're always looking for something to steal or whatever, right? Well, these guys are looking for investors, and of course, one of my covers, because I was really doing it, was as an angel investor, and so I get invited to all sorts of shit, right? And the girls will, Ukraine is different from Russia because it's harder to get an interaction there than Russia, where it's sort of a given. Um, but they do work you, and that is part of the fucking game. So the game I'm playing in is more of a political one, right? It's more political than anything else. But I get the yachting club, yachting game. But the Epstein thing, I'm like, I don't know. I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday, and I said, look, I'm fucking paranoid, right? And Trump is paranoid. He doesn't smoke, drink, do drugs, right? And even if he's fucking around with his wife, he's using a professional, right? Right? I mean, he's in other words, he gets a professional like a stripper or a fucking porn star.
Stormy Daniels.
He doesn't get an imperial entanglement. Does that mean, with a woman? And so, not that it didn't happen, and not that he's not a bit of a womanizer, because certainly any guy, I mean, I don't know. I was having a discussion with a woman the other day. I was like, Stan, if you're a guy and you're like in that sphere, women throw themselves at you all the time, right? It's not like you have to work to get sex, right? It's just like you just take an opportunity. And he owned a modeling agency at one time, Trump and whatever, and all this other shit. So I look at this and I'm like, I don't know, because I'm like, I don't want anything dangerous near me. Trump's at least as paranoid as I am. He manages his reputation carefully, and so I'm just like, I have a hard time believing that a guy like Trump has to go to Epstein Island to get laid. I just can't see it. I mean,
I think it's not so much that he goes to Epstein's Island to get laid, unlike Bill Clinton or whatever, but rather the refusal to release the Epstein files portrays him as a swamp creature, or portrays him as going back on his promises among the MAGA supporters.
Correct. And so when he came back, and he said, I can't remember which it was. I think it was the JFK stuff. He said, yeah, well, I said that, but it turns out that there's people still alive whose lives would be ruined by the harassment that they would receive if we included information about them. That was just, being a decent person.
Yeah.
The problem in this case is he didn't come out and say, look, this is going to turn into a shitstorm for everybody. I've got right. He didn't come out and say,
no.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, what the fuck?
He said there's no list.
Well, did he really say that? Is that true? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he said that.
Oh, okay. Fuck. What? I have no idea why that would come out.
Well, regardless, some people deserve to have their lives ruined, and sometimes shitstorm need to happen.
Yeah, I'm not. The problem is that, let's say I'm interviewed as whatever during the process, and I knew these people, right? But this is like, in the 60s, right? When I was a little kid. What if you're like an old person and you were the kind of person who was verbally involved, but you had nothing to do with the assassination. You just happen to know people, right? Or something. Or you made a bad decision because you didn't believe what was really something, right? We all make stupid stuff like that.
Okay, I realize Trump did not say that, but the DOJ has concluded, concluded there's no evidence of an incriminating clients list, and that his death in 2019 is a suicide.
Yeah, Mafia has concluded that Mafia did nothing wrong.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about, I used to work for Justice Department, and I didn't think too much of their work ethic. Let me say it that way. but I didn't have I didn't distrust them. Now I don't fucking trust them at all. It's like the problem. It's like the opposite. It's the same with the FBI. I got this guy's card. Where's this guy's card? This guy's. I won't pronounce his name out, right? This FBI guy I talked to recently. He's like, he's a fucking street cop. That's, he's got a 105 IQ. I mean, why is this guy fucking talking to me? So anyway, where are we on this? I think we've covered the fucking issue, haven't we? Covered the issue. Yeah. So the answer is, what's the guy really asking? It's been 100 days. I see a bunch of conservatives who come too quickly, so to speak, expecting that you can move this fucking behemoth like with a wave of your hand, and instead of that, this is an 8 to 12 year project because of the size of the government and the number of actors. So it's working like I expect, perhaps better than I expected, but it's not going to work well enough for the average I come too quick, impulsive conservative thinks that everything is easy to do if you just show up and wave your hand.
What it demonstrates to me is, again, there are no democratic solutions.
I've been trying to think since, was it yesterday we had a conversation about this? I've been trying to think, well, I'm foolishly optimistic, right? Which is what you've been saying all along. And the truth is that I'm willing to act as if there are, but the evidence, I've written a whole fucking book on this, right? The evidence is that it doesn't happen.
Democracy is there just for a show.
Yeah.
To get
power. It's a way to shift power, but then it becomes the way to destroy the civilization. It's fucking awful.
Actual ruling class is immune from democracy.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's by design.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. When we say by design, I'm like, if you deal with these people, there's none of them that smart. It's just not.
It doesn't mean that they can't devise a system that maximizes their.
They actually practice incrementalism, which is in the process is deterministic. So it looks like it's brilliant strategy, but it's not. It's just
no. But here's the thing, right? I figured out long ago in life that smart and quote accomplishments don't exactly map 1-to-1. In fact, I've also seen very smart people who are just kind of laid back, and it's actually the 120 IQs, i.e., who are not very smart. As long as they apply consistent incrementalism, consistent work, they can achieve a lot of outward things. Now multiply that by several generations, and you get a system that's very entrenched to protect the not power, but not benefit. I'm trying to find the right words to protect the interests of them and their descendants.
Right, and so that's why I say you don't have to be particularly bright in whatever. You just follow the incentives, and because Martin's right. You follow the incentives, and you end up with this whenever you put democracy in place. Well, and Martin, let me ask you your pessimism. Let me ask this question. We use a jury, right? And the jury model has been incredibly successful in history, right? As long as the jury is too big to bribe.
As long as it's homogeneous and corresponding to the population.
You are correct. Now, if I were to say that people had to demonstrate sort of competency, virtue, loyalty, whatever, and that 10% of or 20% of people could then vote. Would you think that would be viable?
It would be an improvement, but it's still not ideal, I think.
Because my understanding is that the problem gets to be scale. In other words, what I would like is, of course, is a monarchy and a cabinet, right? And a judiciary. That's what I'd like, right? Because I want it to run like a business, right? But the problem is when you build, let's say, if you build a conglomerate, you have to get information from all these bits and pieces of your production model, right? And I'm just like, well, and the second thing is you want buy-in from them, right? If you're going to make anything, especially if you're going to raise revenues. So from my standpoint, if it's most men, all right, and it's mostly men who've demonstrated certain things, right? Why wouldn't I want them to act like a jury? I don't mean like legislative jury. I mean that if the monarchy and the cabinet come up with a policy, they can vote it up and down. What do you think about that? Or do I need to give you time to think about that one?
That's still improvement. What I heard in there is that you want to run a nation like a business, which is very fundamental difference between us. Is I view nation as an army, not a business.
Oh, I see. I'm only. I see what you're thinking, and so you are in favor more of the Prussian or the Italian model, which is that you're a cohesive army first, and that the economy is your supply chain, right? Your supply, what do you call it? Your logistics problem. Is that sort of like how you think about it?
It's there to allow army maintain sovereignty.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I would disagree with you. I think I don't usually think in that level, and this is something else that I took away from our conversation yesterday. It was I don't know, it was Wednesday or yesterday, I don't remember, which was that I am so Anglo and I'm so used to having sovereignty that I don't think about how hard that is to have, and therefore how much you have to be more a military that has an economy as logistics versus an economy that is backed by a military. And I think that change in my thinking has to come about. You do get through to me, Martin. It takes a while. It's just.
I don't know how you can be used to having sovereignty when Anglos haven't had it for so long.
Well, Americans. Americans as a country, we have military might.
Country, yes, but who controls the country?
Yes, exactly.